No!
I've always been fascinated by games made on a shoestring like Lethal Company. No budget, no team, no backing from big publishers, and yet somehow they explode out of nowhere, take over the internet and outrun AAA titles by miles. But almost every one of these stories has the same ending: a sudden rise, a moment of glory, and then silence. Or in our case, a replacement. Cause now R.E.P.O has entered the stage. In this video, I want to explain why Lethal Company and R.E.P.O are fundamentally different games, and why the original is losing to its clone. I'll compare the games on the main points to highlight the differences, and as a bonus, I'll explain at the end why games like this are doomed to be forgotten. When it comes to atmosphere, these two games are pretty much opposites. But despite their different gameplay styles, there are some pretty funny paradoxes. Take Lethal Company. For example, it's all about this spooky, mysterious vibe. But ironically, it got famous mostly because it creates endless, hilarious moments.
Oh, this snake is so cute!
Uh,
Oh, what?
don't worry.
It's because
Oh my
of
god,
this
he's
Wait, I
so
nearly saw
biting!
the tummy bug.
He's so
Taking
biting!
And it's just blow up shorts on YouTube. On the other hand, R.E.P.O focuses on fast-paced action, emotions, and fun.
Bro, watch out.
But honestly, when I think about my sessions, what stinks with me the most, unexpected jump scares that made me scream like a little girl. But in Lethal Company, the opposite situation, as I said. So yeah, these games are basically mirror images of each other, which is kinda cool. But if you dig a bit deeper, I gotta say Lethal Company pulls you in way more with its atmosphere. Play it and you will feel what I mean. The world more mysterious, and importantly it makes sense. The whole space scrapyard thing for some intergalactic corporation is weird but somehow clicks. It sparks your curiosity and leaves plenty of room for your imagination. R.E.P.O feels more like one of those crazy fever dreams. Bright, wild, chaotic, and honestly totally random. The monsters seems like they were made by a TikTok inspired neural network. Random, insane, and without any real logic. They always have only one behavior program: to cause your maximum pain. You do not feel them as something alive, they are rather screaming dummies. In a Lethal Company, monsters live their own lives. For example, bees, spiders. They do not pursue the goal of somehow destroying you, they just live in their own lives, trying to get food for themselves. Even a monster like Bracken rather treat the player with caution and interest.
You fucking bitch!
But in the end, of course, he still wants to kill you, but he shows signs of intelligence and accuracy. So regarding the atmosphere and depth of the world, is obvious to me the original wins. It's not just funny or scary, it's memorable, as a coherent, strange, but logical space horror. Also, I want to talk about server problems, cause both projects have serious issues here. In Lethal Company, the original game lets you play with up to 4 people max. To me, that's quite a modest number, especially considering how big and diverse the world is. The limit could easily have been raised to 6 players like R.E.P.O did. Also, Lethal Company doesn't have a proper regional server separation. It only has WAGU categories like nearby, far, and worldwide. Why it was done this way isn't really clear. Maybe developers wanted to add some mystery to the menu, but in practice it's inconvenient. There are often confusions, and instead of players from your region, you end up in sessions with people from the other side of the world, and it's not pretty convenient, not because of cultural differences, but because of the big ping. In R.E.P.O there are no such problems. You pick Europe, you play with Europeans. Simple, and there are no crashes or bugs during gameplay, whereas Lethal Company regularly suffer from those issues even if you play with people from your region, and it's terrible. It's really very terrible, like half of the servers doesn't work, or you can crash out during the game. In R.E.P.O I never observed such problems. R.E.P.O could have been the clear winner here if not for one but. In public games you can't save your progress or load your save, even if you're playing solo. You have to start from scratch every time you want to play with randoms. In private lobbies, this problem doesn't exist, but personally, it hurts my motivation. Why bother collecting anything if it's all resets anyway, even if you will play with these people again? It's also worth mentioning that in both games you can join an ongoing session once you're already in an intermediate zone, whether it's a base or a shop. So in the end, both games suffer from serious limitations. But I'll still give the win to R.E.P.O for 6 slots, stable servers, and clear regional matchmaking. I believe R.E.P.O has solved the main issue of the original game, and that's exactly why it's currently more popular. I want to dive deeper into how these two games differ conceptually, and why I think the second one offers better gameplay. So, both games share the same skeleton. You have a quota of money to collect in order to move on to the next level. Sounds simple, the core is the same, right? But no, this is exactly where the two games become fundamentally different. In Lethal Company, despite the abundance of items, you're limited by the number of inventory slots, and weapons like the shower or zap gun aren't very effective. On top of that, you face hordes of unkillable monsters that spawns more frequently as you progress. From my experience and from serving other players, the main motivation for collecting items here is the fear of missing the quota and getting fired. Sure, there are some cool items, but overall you need the slots for loot. So any extra gear just gets in the way. It's often better to run around empty-handed or with just a flashlight, and honestly, if the flashlight didn't take up a slot like it does at Repo, things would be a lot smoother. I've often found myself reluctant to take risk and go out of my way for extra loot once I've grabbed the basic. And that's not just my trait, it's a natural mindset for most lethal players. So the verdict, the motivation here is mostly negative. Reaper, on the other hand, changed everything. You've got a card that frees up your hands, and the game encourages varied team play, letting you use your slots more efficiently. Sure, you still only get 3, but you can buy a ton of stuff, healing items, stat upgrades, a variety of weapons, and all of it is actually meaningful and impacts how you play. The core motivation now isn't just about hitting the quota, it's about staking cash to buy and experiment with new gear to take on enemies. This turns the scavenging progress into something fun and rewarding. So what we end up with are two completely different kind of motivation, and I think Repo wins hands down. The gameplay is more dynamic, you have better reasons to go looting, and it avoids the sluggish pacing and long waiting times of the original, and it's actually kinda really good idea. As I mentioned at the start of the video, both games are doomed to slowly lose their player base. The main reason is the lack of real variety. Sure, procedural generation is fun at first, but after a couple dozen runs, everything starts to feel the same. Essentially just 3 maps following the same structure. Mods definitely breathe new life into the games, but they also split the community, making it harder to find a party. In the end, that still leads to declining interest. If we're talking purely vanilla, Lethal Company does have a bit more variety in monsters, maps and items, but that only adds maybe 25-50 extra hours of fun. At the core, both games suffer from the same issue, no major updates, and honestly that's not surprising. Once a game hits big in its current form, there is often little motivation to keep working on it. Lethal Company offers a more thoughtfully designed gameplay experience and the world. Each planet has its own backstory and the monsters and fauna seems to live their own lives, mostly indifferent to the player. Some creatures hunt with intent and even seem to view the player as more than just prey, like the spiders, bracken, and thumper. Others remain completely mysterious and otherworldly, like Coilhead, the girl, or the jester. The game also features a ritual, scatter notes, and a deep dive into pure, unrelenting horror. R.E.P.O, on the other hand, is a lighter and more fun experience. It can still scare you, but mostly through sudden jump scares rather than a constant sense of dread. Its universe defies explanation, and maybe that's part of its charm. The enemies here are mostly simple brutes who attack on sight without hesitation. There is a little connection to the world around them. There are not animals or mystical beings, just soulless monsters. That said, the gameplay is more fast-paced, energetic, and fun. To sum up, I enjoy both games in their own ways, but objectively, Lethal Company stands out as not only the foundation of the genre, but also as the more polished, cohesive, and memorable experience. So yeah, I honestly think that as a game, Lethal Company is objectively better, but I still end up playing R.E.P.O more often, mostly cause it doesn't crash every 5 minutes, and the community there is just nicer and better. This was Ayama. If you enjoyed the video, support a Rocky content creator with a like, comment, or whatever else the algorithm gods crave. Thanks for watching.